Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 100 of the podcast. I'm Angelo Luciani, and let me first start off by saying thank you to our listeners, subscribers, and guests. We truly enjoy putting together this podcast for the Nutanix community, and thank you for taking the time to listen. Let's make 2022 even better. I'd like to get more of you on the show, so if you'd like to join us on the podcast, let me know, and we can make it happen. This week on the podcast, Dwayne chats with Matt Slotten, who's done some really impressive work with moving a portion of our test drive environment on-prem. Think of it as Nutanix running on Nutanix. Dwayne and Matt dive deep into what is involved, what were some of the challenges, and the surprising results. Oh, and there's an interesting French fry story that both Dwayne and Matt share. So with that, let's join the conversation.
Today on the show, we have almost the leader of the free world, pretty close, but he is the leader of test drive at Nutanix. Hey, Matt Slotten, how's it going?
I'm good, Dwayne. How are you? What an intro.
Yeah, not too bad. Things are, I guess, getting ready for Santa up north of the border, helping the elves out. Christmas is on its way. Have to help out the Americans with your supply chain issues, I guess.
Yeah, send us some computer chips, maybe some cars. That's what I'll ask for Christmas. You guys get Christmas, a month earlier in Canada? Is that right? Kind of like Thanksgiving?
Well, we're trying to do it earlier this year so we get Christmas.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But, we really wanted to have you on the podcast to talk about test drive. Lately, internally anyway, there's been chatter that test drives are moving. But before we get too into the weeds, maybe just, who is Matt Slotten? How does he look that good on a Friday?
Dude, I don't think we have enough time in the podcast. Definitely happy to be here, join you, Dwayne. It's always fun. I never know what's coming out of left field with the great Dwayne Lester. Quick intro about me. My name is Matt Slotten. I'm Director of Technical Marketing Engineering here at Nutanix. And I head up the technical team for Test Drive. Wear a number of different hats, but for today, I'll put on the test drive hat. And I guess I'm coming on 7 years at Nutanix. I originally joined in our services team and spent about 5 years within professional services. Got to scoot around the world a bit and spend some time up in the Great White North, so where you're from. And about 3 years ago, I changed gears a little bit and went to technical marketing engineering. And I've been enjoying it ever since and dove right in on test drive for doing some moving and hustling and shifting. And it's been a fun project.
Yeah, you've been here long enough to work on many things. And I guess when that happens, you never really let go of a lot of things either. But from, if I was to go into the Googs and type in test drive, I would hopefully find the landing page, but there'd be a plethora of options. But what is test drive for Nutanix? What the heck is it?
Sure. Yeah. So it's super cool. We'll throw the pitch in there. So I guess for those listening,
it's your baby.
It's my baby. Yeah. For those interested, go to nutanix.com/test drive. That'll get you access to almost all of them. But yeah, it's essentially, it was born, it's basically been born and reborn, really a couple times now, but it was initially a kind of take on trying to consumerize what our engineering team does. And using that to try to get our product into the hands of the customer. So from my seat, I guess one of my roles still today actually is helping with our .next labs. So hands-on labs and coordinating the lab content, coordinating the actual lab so users can log in and kick the tires. And we pride ourselves here at Nutanix in that we use true blue product. You don't just use pre-recorded videos or fake mock-ups. I know, coming as a practitioner, it always bothered me. I'm not going to call any vendors out by name, but it always bothered me taking other vendors' demos when it wasn't the real demo.
Just a conversation between friends, Matt.
Okay,
it's just a conversation between friends. Just whisper it gently. Just kidding.
So taking kind of what we learned from that, it's one of our most attended events, whether in person for hands-on labs or obviously kind of as of late, we've been doing .next Digital. It continues to be one of our most attended events as part of the conference. And we kind of stepped back and said, hey, this is great. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you remember when we used to see people live? We used to shake hands.
I haven't seen another human in, I guess, 2 years. You don't count my wife. She'd be pretty upset if she heard me say that. I've obviously seen her. But yeah, it's a weird time, man. I very much look forward to in-person conferences again for the swag alone. But yeah,
I had a tweet a couple weeks ago about running out of t-shirts. I had to buy my own shirts. That's how bad it got.
Dude, it's fun. Yeah, like all my Nutanix stuff, it's like a frozen in time. Like I don't have a Nutanix t-shirt newer than 2 years. It's weird. I used to have a constant stream of t-shirts and swag and drones, and it's all dried up. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so to take it away from the conference, we kind of stepped back and said, hey, how can we bring this really popular conference thing to people and they don't have to come to the conference? So kind of the idea for Test Drive kind of started there, obviously being a, web forward technology, right? You can administer Nutanix, almost all Nutanix products via a web browser. We said, there's nothing technically stopping us from, delivering this to end users. So I'm not going to go belabor it too much, but long story short, Test Drive is essentially a hands-on lab demo environment that you can access from the comfort of your own home. That is hopefully infection-free. And you can sit back, relax, kick the tires anytime you want, sign up for a test drive. And what we do is we take a real Nutanix product, whether it's AOS or Calm or whatnot, we orchestrate and deploy it in a nested virtualized environment, but that's transparent to the user. And then we overlay guidance, which is heavily based off our labs as to how to use the product, highlight key features. But the cool thing too is, a lot of users go in and they actually just close that guidance and just kind of, go on their own journey because it is a true blue product. So that's a lot of words to tell you, but that's in a nutshell what Test Drive is.
No one wants to be told what to do. How else would you get into some weird situation in the lab itself?
Exactly.
So, over time, where does Test Drive live? In the original version.
Yeah.
How is it accessible to Dwayne in Canada and up north?
Very good question. We hosted it initially in public cloud, and actually a large part of it is still hosted in public cloud. And we did that for a number of reasons. Number one, so our engineering team, we actually built Test Drive off some technology our engineering team uses in QA, where we were getting short on hardware, and engineers were fighting to push their versions or images onto hardware, and so they ended up developing we'll call it NX on X, but essentially it allows them to spin up virtual nested clusters. So getting better density, it's a lot more, embracing the digital, the virtualization, and, lets them kind of run their code and kick the tires and whatnot. So we kind of leveraged that backing to back Test Drive, and we originally just built it all in the public cloud. So that was kind of one reason. The other reason is just, quick to innovate, right? So didn't have to procure hardware, didn't have to figure out networking, it was all pretty easy just to stick it up in the public cloud and kind of move on and actually build it out. And we did that we're about 2 years in now with what we call Test Drive 2.0, which is kind of, that's Test Drive 2.0 is essentially what we've discussed with the overlay instructions. Test Drive 1.0 is kind of a little bit more raw. It was like a customer could sign into My Nutanix and just spin up a nested cluster, and there was no guidance or anything like that. So 2.0 is kind of the rebirth of it to get it a little more user-friendly.
A little bit more direction, I guess. Mm-hmm. And that ease of use, what's the price tag of ease of use in the public cloud? Because that seems pretty lucrative for somebody not named Matt.
I wish. Yeah. It's funny. Who would have guessed that the public cloud can get expensive? It's a mystery. No one knew. But yeah, it's funny because early on, actually, I also, I'm not going to pull punches. We initially said, to our leadership, let's build this on Nutanix, right? We're a hybrid cloud company. Let's build it on our tech. But for reasons I won't go into, they said, no, do it in the public cloud, go forth. You basically have a blank check. So we said, all right, we shall. And we use that blank check a lot. And,
as them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we could probably over the 2 years we've been doing test drive, you could probably afford a couple Ferraris, just to kind of give it, depending on what type of Ferrari, I won't say, but it was up there. So that, and as we onboarded, we have more users adopting it. We onboarded additional experiences. So we just kind of bloomed in a good way, but also our bill bloomed along with it. So we kind of started revisiting the idea of let's repatriate some of these workloads onto actual Nutanix. And that was kind of the start of test drive on premises.
You remind me of an old boss I once had. This is back in high school. He told me that he could buy a new car every year with the amount of French fries that I dumped on the floor.
I don't know what does that speak to a lot of French fries on the floor, or how cheap automotives are in Canada? Or both?
Oh, man. Probably just means that I'm a slob. But who knows?
As an aside...
so moving...
Oh, okay. I was going to share a French fries story, but I realized we're limited on time. So
I like French fries. We just had Remembrance Day, so it's like freedom fries, so go for it.
Yeah. So my best friend, I actually met him when I first moved to Georgia when I think I was in second grade. And I met him because he was in the dining hall or whatever, the cafeteria. And he was known amongst the other second graders to be a fry fiend, but not just any fry fiend. He also very much enjoyed ranch dressing. So much so that his mother used to send him to school with a separate set of clothes every day because he would leave lunch and just be covered in ranch. I was like, I got to be friends with this guy. This guy, he marches to the beat of his own drum, and we're still best friends. It's my fry story.
Right on. So, obviously there was a cost associated with running in the cloud. It was starting, as the popularity of test drive grew and people are getting access to it, there needs to be some type of valve, right? We can't be federal governments that just print more money. So what was the mechanisms to put it back onto on-prem? Or are there still pieces still sitting in the cloud as well?
Good, very good question. So yes, it was. I wish it was as easy as just clicking an easy button. But I should also say, in some ways, it was. Being a hybrid cloud company we are as a Nutanix, but at the same time, we dealt with a lot of things. I think a lot of our customers are dealing with most of it's around network and security. But, really basic things too, right? In terms of kind of what you're saying is, how do we decide what goes in the cloud and what comes on premises, and how do we flip that switch, and how do we operationalize this? And one big question early on too is we really wanted to maintain the same architecture. So we didn't want to have to build a whole separate API that we call to provision on premises versus in the cloud versus we actually, I should also back up too. We support multiple public clouds with Test Drive. We only use one of them today. And then obviously we now have our on-premises cloud as well. But yeah, so I think early on it was kind of, we had our early requirements about let's keep it as seamless as possible. We wanted to be transparent for the user. And there was a lot of network architecture. There's a lot of working with Nutanix engineering, just because, it was designed for the public cloud that they're using for QA, not for on-premises, but all told, it makes it sound like I did a whole bunch of stuff. I really was just the program monkey. I really want to make sure I highlight engineering. Definitely did probably the heavy lifting. And then Jason Burns, I want to call out. He's a technical marketing engineer at Nutanix, one of our Dwayne's and my colleagues, and he was awesome because we had to essentially figure out a way to do this securely. Right when it's in the public cloud, it's really easy to kind of stick everyone in their own tenant, and user A can't talk to user B. But implementing that on premises is a little more complicated. But fortunately, kind of the timing was right in that we were able to use flow networking, which at the time was an early access product. It is now GA. But without, doing a whole bunch of word vomit, high level is it allows us to do kind of secure multi-tenancy and automated provision of VPCs. So you can actually isolate test drive users. So if Dwayne came in and wanted to do some naughty things, he can't mess up Matt's test drive and vice versa.
Sounds like a challenge.
Go for it, man. That's another, that was a fun aspect. I call it whack-a-mole. But even before we went on premises, one thing that we discovered was, and I guess this should be no surprise to anybody, but the number of Bitcoin miners with free time. was incredible. So Test Drive, early on, we didn't really block anything. So we ended up seeing a lot of Bitcoin miners coming in, and, they didn't know that they were being backed by virtual clusters. So, from a compute perspective, if they'd known that, I don't think they would have spent the time. But as part of that, though, we had to make sure we architected both public cloud and our premises to, put in necessary controls to stop that Bitcoin mining for all that Dogecoin.
Yeah, I think, he brings up good points. A couple of things that out of those sound bites that I got. One, moving back to on-prem. I don't know, did you have to deal with storage at all? Because I think that's one thing customers probably have a more of a pain point in moving when they have to leave. Did you have to really move anything on the storage side, or could you just build new?
So for the most part, we were very fortunate in the sense that because Test Drive is an ephemeral workload, right? So once you go and take a test drive, they're all good for 4 hours. You have the option to extend to 8, but after 8 hours, we just trash it, right? We don't save it, and we actually reprovision each one from scratch. So we were fortunate in that we didn't really have to migrate storage back down, but we still had to worry about some storage, right? So, we use Calm to automate the provisioning of these clusters, and obviously we need to store images somewhere. So actually today, whether you're on premises or in the public cloud, we actually pull from a bucket that's in the same public cloud, which we are now our next step. So I guess you can call it Test Drive 4, but so we called it the 4.0 release. This is going to be 4.1 is we are implementing a proxy cache, essentially, because we've noticed, kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. While we've repatriated workloads and VMs, our network utilization is really high over our VPN because we're pulling, every time we provision a cluster, we're pulling down images. So we definitely have to kind of be cognizant of storage there.
That's a good call out for customers too, or really anybody in general as they move stuff around. The other one with that too, on the security side, obviously, you don't know until something happens, and hopefully you're lucky to catch it before the cost goes too far up. So part of securing the workload, and maybe you use a bit of it within the public cloud anyway, but using flow networking, what were the main pieces to secure the workloads in that environment? Just policy rules, or were you also using micro segmentation?
Yeah, all of the above. So it was, from a flow networking, it's actually interesting too, meeting with our engineering. So, Jason's been really good about kind of bridging the gap between what we've been doing on Test Drive on premises and working with actual flow engineering. Cause we're basically using all of the features of flow. So yeah, doing secure multi-tenancy with the automated VPC, that was kind of step one. Step two was like flow policies as well as microseg, right? So we can get very granular in terms of what traffic direction we allow to where and on which ports. And then probably the most complex thing, and actually delayed our go live, but no hard feelings. But Nutanix InfoSec came back and said, hey, we need to make sure all this traffic goes out the public cloud, right? So even though this is in our Nutanix data center, we need to protect our IP reputation. In a worst case scenario, we don't want Nutanix.com IP addresses to be doing funky stuff. So
be blocked.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, it's funny because on the surface, it was literally like a 1-sentence requirement. And once we started digging in and realized exactly what that meant, that really, it became very complex. But because of flow networking and because of the VPC automation, we stood up a VPN between our on-premises and public cloud. We worked very closely with Corp IT. We got it to work. A lot of network hops, a lot of router kind of modification, but it's rock solid now. It's working well.
As far as the gear moving back, maybe what was there a partner in crime that maybe for that side? Because I think if you're using cloud hardware in multiple regions, there's probably a fair bit of hardware that at least startup costs that would have to happen.
Totally. Yeah. You've teed me up. So yeah, I definitely wanted to thank our good friends at Intel. Cause yeah, Intel was awesome. We approached them, actually out of the gate, we didn't plan on kind of leveraging the partnership. We were going to do this either way, but Intel being a really close partner of Nutanix's came up to us and said, hey, we want to help you guys with this project. This sounds really cool. So yeah, they essentially help us fund our on-premises hardware. And right now we've got a 14 node. It's a top of the line cluster. We're leveraging, best in performance Intel technologies. We're using Intel Optane. So Optane SSDs. We're using the beefiest processors they have. And it's humming. Like with our 14 nodes, we can host a minimum of 200 what we call TD2s, or that's the test drive, the private cloud. And obviously each experience is different in its resource utilization, but it's 14 nodes. I mean, that's insane in terms of the density, right? We could get at least 15 users per physical node. And then we actually probably get well north of there. We did some load and volume testing, and that was a fun exercise. And I think we actually got to the point
I think that's that's probably even more impressive knowing that you're deploying Prism Central, right, for every customer that grabs a test drive too, or maybe even two Prism Centrals. And if you've deployed those, you know that there's some RAM involved.
A bit, well, and funny you mentioned that too. So coming from the services world, I fully expected RAM to be our constraining factor in this project. And as it turns out, actually CPU is, which was kind of surprising to me. They're pretty close in terms of our utilization, but yeah, CPU, and I guess it makes sense, right? Because we're nesting virtualization, and so we've got an AHV VM running on AHV, and of course on that VM there's user VMs. So I think that's part of the reason we see higher compute. But nonetheless, yeah, it's super impressive getting. It's not just a single VM either, right? Each test drive, like you said, we deploy a PC, we deploy a CVM, we just deploy an HV host. On the HV host, we then have some nested VMs. So, we're looking at, several, handful of VMs, half a dozen VMs per test drive. And to get multiplied by 15 per physical node, it's pretty good density.
Are you still in a position, like on demand, whether it's, multiple events happening, new product launch, to burst into the public cloud when that cluster gets full?
Yes. Yeah. So that was an early requirement that we had as well, is, we while we want to repatriate these workloads, we didn't want to, hamstring ourselves and be stuck if, times of high demand. So, we can absolutely burst to cloud. We actually have a number of mechanisms that kind of check utilization. And once we reach a certain threshold, it'll automatically seamlessly start provisioning, to the public cloud. And we also, for that kind of in the same vein, we've actually set up some operational things as well, right? So I call it the master override switch, but it's essentially a switch that lets me send everything to the public cloud.
Oh boy.
So if we need to do some sort of maintenance on premises, I can basically flip that switch, kind of evacuate.
Are there any thoughts on the regions you use or deploy to, or you just have a couple set up that are kind of acting as your place to land in the event of need?
You're teeing me up. I'm very impressed, Dwayne, because I know you're not in the know about exactly what's coming down the pipe for test drive. You actually teed me up perfectly, because that's the next thing we're doing. So
I am pretty much clueless on most topics. If you believe that.
To be clear. But yeah, so right now, and I guess I'll start too. I want to apologize to basically anyone that's not in at least the Western hemisphere. So for our friends in APJ, even our friends in Europe, currently all test drives, whether they're in public cloud or on premises, are hosted out of the US, US based regions.
Boo, boo.
Yeah. Hey, we need more data centers up in Canada. You guys got cooling built in up there. I gotta use that.
AWS just announced a new region in Alberta, but of course that won't be here for like 3 years. And then don't think Microsoft and both AWS both have stuff in the East where the big decisions are made.
Right, the heavy hitters. But yes, so today it's all North America. But actually, we are currently in our staging environment. I can actually say as of yesterday, we're starting with testing, rolling out essentially to regions all over the globe, right? So we're starting with APJ. I guess that's, obviously kind of, we're going to aim for the opposite side of the globe. And also our biggest use case other than North America is India, actually. So between US and Canada, our next second biggest use case comes from India. So yeah, we're currently testing just public cloud in APJ region, but kind of following from that, we have plans to potentially roll out additional on-premises clusters in some Nutanix data centers over in that area of the world, and automatically routing users using some GSLB and some fanciness around ingress control. And that's actually something that I've omitted, by the way. You asked me earlier, Dwayne, and I won't spend too much time on it because I know we're getting short on time. But in terms of technologies we're built on, I also want to, other than being core Nutanix technologies, we actually leverage, cutting edge CI/CD. We're building everything in Python and Kubernetes. We use Google Firestore as our data backing because we're cool kids. So yeah, we're cutting edge, man. We're definitely using the latest and greatest, which is fun.
Do you think some of that work will show up in an architectural paper, or maybe it'll help do the newly minted validated design?
Good question. Yeah, so yes, in short, we definitely, now that the dust is settling, we're catching our breath-ish. We're always still running. But yeah, no, we're definitely looking to publish at the very least some blogs, put together high level design, because, the beauty of this, cost saving aside for the company and for our shareholders, the beauty of this is we are using Nutanix technologies in the same use case that many of our customers are looking at. So we definitely want to highlight that and say, hey, you guys can do it too. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out on validated designs.
Yeah, I think, no one went to the public cloud because it was cheaper, but obviously there's a ease of use and time to value that can be brought there, but that doesn't preclude anyone from, operating their own data center. Now it's a complicated mess, and that's why if you're good at it, you get paid pretty well. So it all makes sense. Though one last question that I kind of was thinking about, are there any new technologies for customers that may spur out of it? You mentioned proxying, so I don't know if there's something to be had there with within the multiple tenants that would help out.
Yeah, so I can say definitively, based on the project, we actually we had a continuous feedback loop to product, right? So in particular, Flow Networking has, at the very least, we found some bugs, which is always fun. But they also, we went to them and said, hey, this feature is great, but we need it to kind of work this way. And, product team was awesome in that they actually went and implemented that. Likewise, Calm. I know the Calm DSL, we actually found the other day that we were having some issues provisioning. And, we could have just ripped it out of the test drive, but we actually went to the Calm product team and said, hey guys, this API is broken. You need to fix this. And they did. So certainly we'll see some benefit in Nutanix product as a result of this project. But yeah, I think kind of stepping back directly from product, there's definitely some architectures and some proxies and some just, network design patterns that could potentially be leveraged by customers.
Nice. It's always, if someone's already done the hard work, why reinvent the wheel? So it's good to know that some of that we'll see the free pages of the internet. But with that, maybe, if there's anything else you want to tell about Test Drive, anything new coming up, maybe a new lab that might be on its way.
Totally. Yeah. So I guess definitely encourage everyone listening to go take a test drive if you haven't. And if you have, go take another one. And actually see if you can tell what's on premises and what's not. Hint, hint, you probably won't be able to, or at least my hope is you won't be able to. But yeah, I think in the short term, there probably won't be a ton of change. Actually, we're trying to keep it transparent, but we are moving more experiences on premises. I can guarantee you, though, if you take a Nutanix private cloud test drive, what we call TD2 today, it will be on premises unless we have some sort of maintenance activity going on or some high demand event. But yeah, and then just for Nutanix Test Drive in general, we're definitely looking at onboarding additional new experiences, upgrading existing ones. Keep a lookout for Era. So Era is going to be upgraded to the latest and greatest here shortly. Calm is ripe for some upgrades as well. So definitely, lifecycle managing those, but also new experiences. So been working with our friends at the Citrix. We're looking at a Nutanix and Citrix test drive, potentially something around Nutanix Move and Nutanix X-Ray as well. So yeah, lots coming down the pipe. definitely, we're going to hopefully start blogging about it more once we come up for air a little bit, and just keep an eye on nutanix.com/test drive.
So come back, come early, come often, see what's shaking in the test drive world. I would encourage everyone to check out, if you have any other questions that maybe have been spurred on how maybe Matt and his team have done something, go to the community webpage, Hybrid Clusters Forum, or another forum will get you connected. And then also check out nutanix.dev. We're continuing to push scripts and other pieces of code that are being used across enterprises there. So maybe there's, a get out of jail free card, or at least save you a couple hours with something that someone's already tried out. So with that, thanks, Matt. It's been a pleasure learning from you, and I will go try to figure out where Test Drive lives. Thank you.
Sounds good. Have fun playing in the snow. Thanks, Dwayne. Always a pleasure, man.
Remember, you can watch on-demand sessions if you go to nutanix.com/next. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. So with that, from your friends here at Nutanix, have a great week.